Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. And things are beginning to heat up, literally. Now, today our discussion will center around the number one 1980s British band called KLF. And then I've got some news for you about the JFK assassination, proving that it was an inside job. But the first thing we're going to get into today is volcanoes. Now, a lot of people wanted me to climb off of this. Casey, what are you on about? But apparently all this attention that God wanted us to put on volcanoes was for good reason, because this is the story that broke yesterday. It's all over the news. We picked up the Newsweek article, but they all pretty much say the same thing. And that is that 19 volcanoes are erupting around the world all at the same time. Now, all this started popping off just after the October 14th eclipse. Remember that? And the eclipse went right over Thacker Pass and the extinct volcano, the caldera there, over Black Rock Desert, where Burning Man is. And then it went down through Mexico. And there was a volcano that woke up during the eclipse. And we said, what if all the volcanoes started waking up? Well, apparently they are. 19 volcanoes erupt all at the same time. Now, people are talking about this. It's all over Twitter X. People are like, this is weird. What's happening? But we kind of already knew this was going to happen, didn't we? As a gift of the Holy Spirit. Now, I'm going to read this article, and then we're going to talk more about this volcano cult as it relates specifically to the British band KLF. More than a dozen volcanoes are erupting at the same time worldwide, and 3 new eruptions joined the list this week. Smithsonian Institute's Global Volcanism Program tracks new eruptions and updates its list of currently erupting volcanoes on Wednesdays. The most recent update shows 3 new eruptions, bringing the list total to 19 eruptions at once. This doesn't include all erupting volcanoes, so there's even more than this. The new volcanic eruptions have some people voicing their concerns on social media. Volcanoes erupt simultaneously in Italy, Iceland, Japan, Mexico, Russia, Philippines, etc. And they show a map, a volcanic activity map. This is a person's post on Twitter X of 2013 versus 2023, and apparently the two are massively different. Volcanoes are popping off all over the world now. Somebody left a comment on a couple shows ago, and they said something to the effect that basically the ring is on fire. And they postulated that this could possibly be the beginnings of the third of the earth and a third of the oceans burnt up. We're going to look at Revelation 8 in a little bit, because it talks about a giant flaming mountain falling into the ocean, causing a third of the waters to be poisoned, essentially. Which sounds a lot like a volcano, doesn't it? It says here, it's not actually uncommon for multiple volcanoes to erupt at once. Experts were quick to dispel any fears. Oh, of course they're going to say that. But here's the thing. Let's listen to what the experts have to say, because they never debunk that there's a lot more volcanoes popping off now than there ever have been in recent history. PSA, volcanoes are erupting all the time all over the world. That's normal. Okay, that's gaslighting right there. Obviously, that's a general statement that doesn't prove anything, right? Everybody knows that. And they continue to gaslight here. That's what Earth's volcanoes do. They erupt. Volcanologist and science journalist Robin George Andrew posted on X. Well, thanks for the tidbit of information there that everybody already knows. Mr. Volcanologist, he says here, and there's enough of them that some will always be erupting at the same time. Oh, wow. Really? We all know that already. And then he continues to gaslight here. You know, what would be weird is if no volcanoes were erupting. So that's gaslighting, right? Now let's keep reading here. The Global Volcanism Program produces a weekly volcanic activity report of actively erupting volcanoes, although it only lists volcanoes after they meet specific criteria, such as sparking and ash advisory. experiencing new activity, exhibiting a change in activity, or showing a change in alert level. So this is what's going on, you guys. Volcanoes popping off all over the world. Here they list them: Japan, Russia, Iceland. Now these aren't all the volcanoes. There are just some of them listed. And again, this is part of the volcano cult. Now let me check them with you, and then we'll get into how the band KLF from the 1980s fits into all this, because what I found was interesting. Now, one of you sent me the volcanoes going off all over the world. Thanks for that. I didn't know that was happening, but you guys watch the channel, and when you see information that confirms the work we're doing, you send it to me, and that's awesome. I don't get to see everything, but when I see something that relates to what we're talking about, I definitely report on it. So thank you. I think it was Tom Hindy that sent me that link. Thanks, Tom. And then someone else sent me this KLF band, and they said, Casey, you have to take a look at this music video from KLF. Now, I didn't know about this band. Apparently, they were very popular in the 1980s. They were the #1 British group in the 1980s. I had never heard of them. Maybe some of you have. But wait until you see this. This is the KLF band. And the band's name stands for Copyright Liberation Front. I had to look that up because it doesn't say it here in the Wikipedia article. So there's an example of error by omission, right? Copyright Liberation Front. Because much of their occult symbolism, it actually confirms a lot of our recent research into the Burning Man volcano cult. Apparently, the band got much of their material from the book, the Illuminatus Trilogy. It says it right here in the Wikipedia article. They got it from the Illuminatus Trilogy book, which we just covered. And they actually named one of their songs or albums after it. But the weird thing is that we just decoded the Illuminatus Trilogy, didn't we? And they named the cult of Tlaloc in that book 21 times. Now, what makes this band weird is that they also go by other names. Names that also seem to support a lot of the work we've done, like the name Time Lords and the Justified Ancients of Mu, or JAM for short. Now, Mu is Atlantis. Many people believe the two are one and the same, right? And so, of course, Atlantis is also mentioned in the Illuminatus Trilogy. So they got a lot of their content from this book for some reason. We're going to try to get down to the bottom of it. Now, the reason why we're covering this band is not only because of their links to the Illuminatus Trilogy that we just covered, and being the #1 British band in the world, we're covering them because they actually confirm the whole Burning Man cult. The Burning Man cult, the volcano cult of Tlaloc, in a movie that they did called The Rites of Mu. Here it is right here. We're going to take a look at part of this. This is the trailer. And let's take a look. Now, we're going to talk about this whole 23 seconds to eternity as well, because the band is obsessed with the number 23. But the first thing I want you to notice is how the speakers are positioned to look like Tlaloc, the goggled god. Now, I don't know if this is what they were getting at, but this stacked speaker thing is actually prominent in this music video. Let's take a look here. Now I'm going to mute the sound here because it's just a bunch of mumbling, but let's take a look. 23 seconds to eternity. The Rites of Mu. Look how satanic this is. You got these people down here. You've got 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, essentially. They call them something else, but they're basically, there's a swan back there, and they almost look like virgins being offered up for sacrifice or something. This is about as satanic as it gets. And then they erect this huge effigy, which is the Burning Man. They actually call it The Burning Man. Now, this trailer came out in 1992, and it's basically filming the rites of Mu, which the KLF group, basically, they say that they transported or like astral projected or went through a time portal to the lost continent of Mu. That's kind of the backdrop of this film that they did. And then here they witness the burning of the Wicker Man. It's right there in the plot. Now let's keep watching here. Look at this thing. So they light this thing on fire, of course. This is the Burning Man cult all the way back in 1992. And that's pretty much it. Now I've got other videos of this. Here's a longer video which goes into a little bit more detail. Now I'm not sure how much of this I can play for copyright, but we're going to try to get through this. So, straight up Burning Man symbolism, confirming all these connections we made to the volcanoes and Tlaloc and the Burning Man and all this. It's all connected because it is about the burning of the man. Now, the ritual that you just saw take place happened on the summer solstice. They actually talk about that here. Let me find it. Here it is. The Rites of Mu depicts their celebration of the 1991 summer solstice on the Hebridean island of Jura. Now, this is a Scottish island that they did this on, and this just so happens to be the same place where George Orwell lived and wrote the book 1984. Jura, Scotland. Now, this isn't too far from where the Trump family bloodline is from. Here is the island of Skye and Lewis, and here is Jura, 1984. And George Orwell actually lived in a place called Barnhill. Excuse me. Here he is right here. The typewriter that he used to type this actually still exists at Barnhill. Here's the house here. And apparently it is overlooking a water portal. The Gulf of Corryvreckan. And literally, they say that you can see this whirlpool or these whirlpools out in the channel here from the Barnhill house. Now, this is crazy. Because, in fact, George Orwell was almost sucked into the whirlpool on a boating trip. Now, I've got links to all this. I'm not going to belabor reading all this to you. I'm just giving you the Cliff Notes version of all this so you don't have to go through this. But I will put the links so you can see this for yourself. So, the KLF band decided they were going to go back to Jura on the summer solstice, which is the Burning Man, right? We talked about all this, you guys. Summer solstice, burning the man. And what did they do? They burned an effigy. Are you ready for this? How tall was the effigy? 6 plus 6 plus 6 meters tall. 18 meters. And if you had any doubts about what this was really about, in 1991 summer solstice, they actually gave a statement about it. The rites of Mu, since that fateful day, remember, Mu is Atlantis, since that fateful day when man left by the eastern gate, fruit still fresh in his belly, that's the eating of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, right? Those 4 beautiful handmaidens of Lucifer, why, what, where, and when, have long tempted but never quenched his disastrous thirst for knowledge. What does this mean? This why, what, where, and then when? Well, the devil is the accuser. He was the first question mark. This is why the question mark looks like a serpent coming out of a hole. Because the devil asked the first question which basically represented rebellion. The basic tenet of a question already suggests that you're not living in God's will, correct? Because if you're living in God's will, then all your questions are answered, and there's only good in the universe. When you start asking questions, let me give you a prime example. You have a child, and you say, don't eat that cookie, and they say, why? And then you go, just because I said, and they go, what for? Where are the cookies? When can I have a cookie? Right? That's just a simple example, but basically it's a form of rebellion, asking questions in defiance of it all. And this is probably what they meant, the KLF band, when they released this statement. They're basically talking between the lines. Unless you know about this stuff and can see it through Holy Spirit eyes, you won't know what they're talking about. He's talking about the thirst for knowledge, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and eating of the fruit. And then they do this on the summer solstice, which is a portal. They know about the portal. This is what happened to Eve. This is the truth about what happened to Eve. She went through a portal, a tree portal. She didn't eat a fruit that God told her not to eat. That's not what really happened. Eating of the fruit is a metaphor for going through a portal or taking part of that tree, consuming that tree. I mean, who knows? What if this tree was like, I don't want to read too much into this, but today we have like a dark side version of it, right? You eat of a tree and what do? You go through a portal. What am I talking about? Well, when you eat tree root cuttings and you have a trip, you essentially go through a portal, right? You go into another frame of reality, another dimension. Now, I'm not saying that that's what happened in the garden, but maybe this is the dark side version of it. When you eat of the trees of the garden, of the knowledge of good and evil, maybe it put her into a different reality. I don't know that. Anyway, let's keep reading here. Now, what else is going on? Well, apparently the band KLF had a fascination with the number 23. What is this about? Well, let's start to break it down. What happened was they proposed a pyramid. They were going to build a pyramid in the north. And they said they were going to build it using 23 grams of human ashes. How sick is that? 23 grams of human ashes in the bricks. But there's more. And they talk about their obsession with the number 23 right here in the Wikipedia article. They list all the things that they did surrounding the number 23. Another example, in 1997, they returned to public life for 23 minutes. And all these other 23 numerical synchronicities intentionally done to focus on the number 23. I'm not going to read all of them, but here they are. And I'll put a link to this in the pinned comment. Now, we understand now in 2023 what 23 is, don't we? It's half the chromosomes of the human being. It's the 23 and me. Now, there's one particular 23 obsession that they list here that I want to focus on. They disclosed this, and this has me thinking, because on 8/23, they say here it is right here, 23 years after they burnt £1 million of money on stage, they published a novel called 2023, a trilogy. Now, what is this about? So in 2017, they wrote a novel called 2023. It was in the future, right? We're going to go into that novel today and check it out. Now, here's what's weird. On the 5th of November, remember, we've been talking all about this, you guys. On the 5th of November, they made a pact. Let me see if I can find that reference here for you guys. What was the pact? To never speak about the burning of the money for 23 years. It was on the 5th of November. Let's see if we can find that. I don't know if it's on this page or another page. Now, what is this about? Why would they make a pact on the 5th of November? Well, that's another portal date, isn't it? It's Samhain. So, they were supposed to never speak about this money being burned for 23 years. And I think maybe it's on this page. Let me find it. 23. Okay, let's find it that way. Oh, here it is. They later issued a statement that on the 5th of November, 1995, they had signed a contract at Cape Wrath in northern Scotland, agreeing to wind up the Cave Foundation and not to speak about the money burning for a period of 23 years. So, let's back up to this book that they wrote in 2017 called the 2023 A Trilogy. And what's it about? Well, it's weird. They talk about natural gas. They talk about the Ukraine. Remember, none of this stuff had happened yet in 2017. They also talk about Michelle Obama being the last president. Could this be Biden? Because he's basically Barack Obama, right? This book also talks about Beyonce and Jay-Z being Illuminati. Now, again, I'm not going to belabor the point and search through all those instances, but suffice it to say, I've already done the word search. And when I put the link in here for you, you can search it yourself as well and find the things that I just talked about. Now, what does it say about natural gas? Let's see if that one comes up here. Gas. Here it is. Gas and all that posturing of his in the Ukraine, if it was only her influence that stood between him and another major European war. She pulls a grapefruit. So it seems like nonsense, which it kind of is, but they're talking about natural gas, Putin, they're talking about war, they're talking about Ukraine. It's all in there. How do these people know this in 2017? I don't know. Now, what else is going on? Well, the Illuminatus trilogy book that we talked about that inspired the band, it actually links Mu to Atlantis and Tlaloc to the Burning Man ceremony. Let's read this. Now, we already read this in a previous show, but now it makes more sense, doesn't it? Now we're back in the Illuminatus trilogy book. Remember, this is the book that the band based their whole theme after. Let's read. Next, he was taken to the throne of regeneration of the soul, and the ceremony of investiture or illumination took place. Then he experienced further ordeals before attaining to the chamber of the Orient, to the throne of Ra, to become truly a master. He could see for himself in the distance the uncreated light from which was pointed out the whole happiness of the future. In other words, as Churchward put it, both in Egypt and in Maya, the initiate had to sustain the fiery ordeal. To be approved as an adept, the adept had to become justified. Now this adept, I believe, this term was actually used in the Last Man on Earth movie, wasn't it? Or TV series. They called the new initiate an adept, right? Now let's keep going here. The adept had to become justified. The justified must then become illuminate. The destruction of Mu was commemorated by the possibly symbolic House of Fire of the Kichimayas and by the relatively later Chamber of Central Fire of the Mysteries, which we are told were celebrated in the Great Pyramid. So these are the roots of the new fire ceremony, aren't they? Goes all the way back to ancient Egypt. Now let's keep reading here. Substituting Atlantis for Mu. I know one of you asked me, Casey, how is Mu Atlantis? Well, they're saying it right here. Churchward and Sanderson, and also it's also accepted scientifically that the two may be one and the same. Let's keep reading. Churchward and Sanderson are basically correct. The god, of course, could choose the shape in which he would appear in the final ordeal, and since these gods, or Oigor in the Atlantean language, possess telepathy, they would read the initiate's mind and manifest in a form most terrifying to the specific individual, although the Shoggoth form and the classic angry giant form, such as appears in Aztec statues of Tlaloc, were most common. So, this fire ceremony would happen. The person would then see Tlaloc, the image of Tlaloc. And then it says, to employ an amusing conceit, if these beings had survived to our time, as some occultists claim, they would appear to the average American as, say, King Kong, or perhaps Dracula, or Wolfman. Then it links it to the fire ceremony. Again here. The sacrifices demanded by these creatures evidently contributed significantly to the fall of Atlantis, and we can conjecture that the mass burnings practiced by the Celts at Beltane and even the Aztec religion, which turned their altars into abattoirs, were minor in comparison. So, there it is right there in black and white. And of course, the movie Wakanda Forever also links Mu to Tlaloc, Mu or Atlantis to Tlaloc, doesn't it? In the plot of the movie Wakanda Forever. So, let's get down to what all this means, and then we'll get into the JFK stuff. What does all this mean? Well, it means we're in the end times. Many of you already know that. We all know we're already in the end times. But notice the 1984 link into all this, written by George Orwell. This is all about the surveillance state, which seems to suggest we've passed through some kind of Corey-Vrekian whirlpool portal, just like off the coast of Jura. Volcanism and earthquakes will be a huge part of it, which are starting to rise. And it means that the enemy anticipated all this, but scripted it out into his own dark symbolism. He knew the burning of the man would coincide with all this. The burning of the flesh, the fire ceremony, no flesh left. Now, all of this is in the Bible, isn't it? The earthquakes, the near extinction of man, the burning up of a third of the earth, all of this is biblical. In fact, Revelation 8:8 says, a huge eruption will be thrown into the sea, causing a third of the oceans to turn blood red. What if the blood red it's talking about is actually lava? I don't know that, but there's something to this, isn't there? Here's the verse. The second angel sounded his trumpet, and something like a huge mountain, all ablaze, was thrown into the sea. A third of the sea turned into blood. Now, some people interpret this as the angel with a mountain in his hand throwing it into the sea, but wouldn't it make more sense if that a volcano was pushed over into the sea, thrown into the sea by the angel, causing the oceans to turn blood red? Wow, right? Now, there's all these other Bible verses that seem to suggest volcanism, and most of these other ones seem to suggest that these volcanoes are ignited as the Lord is beginning to come down to judge everybody. So, we are in the end times. Basically, the Lord touches the tops of these mountains, is what the scriptures say, which causes them to light up and smoke, because judgment is near. Wow. Look at Micah. The mountains melt beneath his feet and flow into the valleys like wax in a fire, like water pouring down a hill. And in some weird way, that's actually encouraging, isn't it? That judgment is near, that God's feet are touching the ground, causing the volcanoes to erupt because we are that close to the end. And I welcome it, actually. Now, the enemy will try to play all this to his advantage, won't he? But we're on the trail, aren't we? Now, let me check in with you guys, and we'll get into JFK in this new documentary that is now, they're now disclosing that there were 2 shooters. Why? How are they saying this? After all these years, 60 years later, we're actually coming up on the 60th anniversary. Well, they're saying that there were 2 shots, and not only were there 2 shots, but they were coming from multiple directions, which means it was impossible that there was only one shooter. And after all these years, these doctors, there were 7 of them, who treated JFK are now admitting this when it doesn't matter anymore, right? When all of the people are dead already that were surrounding this event. Anyone that could have been brought to justice is already passed on. This is unbelievable. Let's take a look, listen to what they say here.
And a powerful new documentary coming tomorrow to Paramount Plus brings light to revelations from the doctors who were in the ER that day.
There they are, the sellouts. Now, I don't know, if I was in this situation, I know what I would do. Okay, but not everyone's like me. Your faith has to be strong. No wishy-washy. If you're threatened and someone says, I'm taking your license, or I'll kill you if you speak out, good, kill me. I pray for you because you are going to lose your salvation when you kill me. I know where I'm going, right? And that's the way I think. But what happens is when people store up all of their treasure on earth and that's threatened to be taken away, then they cave in, right? So look at this. Right here, they're saying it's a conspiracy because all these doctors conspired not to tell the truth about this.
JFK, what the doctors saw, reveals new information that raises the question, was there more than a single shooter?
Well, of course there was. It isn't even a question anymore. These doctors who are reputable are admitting that there was an entry wound and exit wound going in opposite directions, which means it was impossible for there to only be one shooter. Let's keep listening here.
Here's a preview.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Now, who knows what happened? I'm not going to have the debate on whether or not JFK was part of them or not. I don't trust any of these leaders, but that's not to say that there could have been a time in history before they had their control apparatus in place that there might have been a president or 2 that somehow got elected without being in the know. I mean, that could have happened, but I can tell you this, maybe when he said he wanted to put man on the moon, maybe the scientists came back and told him that ain't going to happen because we can't get there. And maybe, I don't know. I mean, this is a lot of conjecture, but maybe that's what happened. Because that would be a huge thing that if he was made aware of it, that we can't really get there, that he might have talked about wanting to come forward to the American people. And that would be a great reason for them to kill him, right? All right, let's get to the meat of it. This is just crazy. Oh boy, here we go again. Here we go again. Let's look at this one. So here's the doctors. I think this one's a better one. Wait a minute. Rolling Stone. Story continues. I think there's another video on here. I'll have to refresh this, you guys. Sorry. I'll always have problems, huh? Oh boy, I think we lost the video. Oh, here we go. So let's try this.
Assassination of President John F.
There they are. 7 doctors.
doctors at Parkland concluded that the neck wound was an entrance wound and the head wound was an exit wound.
The fatal wound came from the front, I think, and other people believe that too.
We thought that there was an entrance wound in the neck and an exit wound in the back of the head.
Parkland Hospital doctors were quoted as saying they thought at least one bullet entered Mr. Kennedy's neck from the front.
So it was a huge cover up. Obviously, just to make this clear, okay, neck and back of head are two opposite directions, okay, and the two bullets were coming from different directions. Now, who shot him in the neck? I don't know, but this is what they're saying here, and so this is a documentary that's coming out. I'm not going to spend any more time on this. To me, it all doesn't matter anymore. This might have mattered 30 years ago, but I don't think it matters anymore now. This is just stirring the pot is what it's doing. No one's going to be brought to justice, and it's just more frustration and anger that will come out. But let's go back into the chat. That's pretty much what I wanted to show you guys today, and see if you guys have any questions about all this. Now, if you're new to the channel, I put all the links to everything I covered today in the pinned comment for you. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We do go live every single day at exactly the same time, except on Saturdays. We do not go live normally on Saturdays unless there's something like an eclipse or something. And what else? Yeah, you will not get a notification for these live shows, and you may be unsubscribed if you subscribe to the channel. It's happened to many regular subscribers. YouTube's keeping this channel limited to its reach. So what does that mean? It means if you don't hear from us, like I said, you should be getting a notification every single day. That means you've been unsubscribed. And so you should resubscribe many times, and maybe even send a complaint into YouTube and ask them why they're doing this. So, all right. I mean, there could have been even more than one. Maybe the other ones missed, right? Maybe there were 3 or 4 just to make sure they got the job done. Who knows? Or maybe the whole thing was fake. Maybe it was a prosthetic that was the flap that popped off the top of his head and he faked his death. I mean, who knows what really happened, right? I mean, what would be the incentive for them to want to do something like that, to fake his death? Well, the incentive would be, don't mess with us, because this will happen to you. That would be the incentive. It would cause a lot of fear, wouldn't it? And also, everybody loves a martyr, don't they? And so maybe they were looking for a martyr. 3-man shooting team, says Michael. Yep, they do everything in threes. There were probably 3. 1 missed. Yeah, there are actually theories out there that he actually was alive after that. Some people say the guy in the front shot him. Yeah, it was a strong message, wasn't it? All the way to this day. Yep. So who knows what these people are up to, right? All right. Is that why the casket wasn't opened? I know some people think that that Jackie did it, but if she did, she would have to have been in front of him, right? For that entrance wound into his neck. Some people say it was a dummy in the car. Possible. Animatronic. Right? Shouldn't the doctors be older? Well, they're pretty old. Some of them look kind of young. I guess they do look young for the time period, right? I mean, that's possible. Maybe these aren't even the real doctors. Jackie is one of the 13 bloodlines, says Sarah. All right. Well, you guys, I'm going to pop off here. Thanks, everybody, for showing up. And I'll likely see you tomorrow, same exact time. I've got more headlines for you guys. Let's see what we have going on for tomorrow. Looks like scientists discovered a vampire virus. We'll cover that tomorrow. And what else? There's a new Economist cover or some kind of image we could look at on a Navy SEAL is under investigation for his ties to the Proud Boys. And he's coming under, he wasn't at the crapper hole, but they're still just going to go after him because of his ties to extremist groups. So now if you disagree with the narrative, you're part of an extremist group. People ask me sometimes, hey, do you want to join this group, this prepper group? No, I don't join any groups. Sorry, I just don't. Why? Because that's what they want you to do. So they can stick a fat label on it and go, look, he's part of this group. He's part of that group. The group you create is your local group of people around you that are like-minded. We have a group here, but we don't publish it anywhere and like go, hey, look at us, we're in a group. No, they're just the body of Christ, like believers, like values, and we all live around each other. And we talk about these things. And we talk about what would happen if something happened. We don't need to post stuff everywhere. And the people that want to come, they'll come. And they'll come live around us. And that's our group. And we're prepared. But the minute you start publishing stuff, what does that do? It invites provocateurs. It invites infiltrators to soil the group and put a label on it if they want to. It's so easy for these people to do this, to derail whatever it is you're doing. They're doing it up in Idaho. There's groups forming. Who do you think made those groups? Probably the CIA. So they can keep tabs on people. So they can make honey traps, just like they did with the Proud Boys. If you haven't figured it out by now, that was a big giant honey trap. It was an operation, federal operation to see who was bold enough to say what and do what, right? Even though nobody really did anything, even though nobody even did anything, they got a big fat label slapped on them, right? And then mysteriously, after the crapper hole, 3 of the people had self-inflicted death, didn't they? That were guarding. So what was that about? That wasn't an accident. Well, they all just got a phone call and said, oh yeah, let's all do this. Of course not. It was like some kind of cover-up. So I don't join any groups because CIA 101 is infiltrate the group by creating it and becoming part of it and running it and taking it over. This is what they do. And anyone with any kind of influence or any threat that they think that will go against their agenda, they're going to do that. What's their biggest threat now? Their biggest threat are people who want to be out of their beast system and telling other people to get out of their beast system. Why is that a threat to them? Because it directly impacts their bottom line. People that don't go to the store and buy all their stuff and aren't materialistic and don't marry within their beast system and don't have mortgages and aren't in debt are a threat to the controllers of this world. Now, they're just on the cusp. It will be probably within the next 5 years. They'll say you can't harvest anything from nature. Even though God gave us the nature, they're going to say you can't. And there'll be very tight rules and restrictions. This is why you have to exercise your right now. Because if you don't, you're going to lose it. You're going to be forced to buy and sell through their system instead of eating it yourself. You don't have to be nervous to be a subscriber. Okay? There's way too many people on this channel for you to have to worry about that. That's what they want you to worry about so that you're not informed. But I just don't understand why people join groups. That doesn't make any sense to me. Because this is what they do. And we do a good job of staying away from even the hint of violence, right? We stay far, far away from that narrative. Okay? If someone's telling you, we got to do something, run from those channels. When they start getting violent and saying, we need to go and do this and do that, because that's part of it. Because then that can be backtracked and looked at and said, oh, look, that person was inciting violence and that's why that person did that. You see the problem? We're supposed to be gentle as doves, just like Jesus tells us to be. But it doesn't mean we can't speak the truth. So we speak the truth and we're gentle about it. We don't cut the ear off the soldier. that was trying to capture Jesus in the garden, right? Because Jesus healed the soldier. Why did he do that? Because he didn't want his disciples being painted with the brush of violence, correct? Yes, we wait on the Lord. When he comes back, he will come back with fire and fury and Armageddon. Let him do the heavy lifting. But we are not to allow them to put these labels on us. Okay? Now, if someone comes to your homestead, defend yourself. That's different than publishing all over the world that you're going to do this and you're going to do that. That's much different, isn't it? So I'm just speaking some truth to you guys. Change comes from the inside out. Change comes from first informing people about the lies. You don't have to speak one word of violence to do that. You tell people the lies. Then they wake up. Then they stop doing the very things that are creating our own prison. Correct? So, you don't have to be afraid to come to this channel because we don't preach violence here at all. When do you ever hear me saying to do something to somebody? Ever. Never. And we never will because we're peaceful. And maybe that's why they took out Martin Luther King Jr. Now, I know people say he might have been a Mason and all this, and maybe he was. But maybe they made him that martyr. Like, oh, even if you're peaceful, we'll kill you, right? Maybe that was the message that they sent. Okay, but look, I'm not afraid to die. Because I know where I'm going. But a lot of people aren't. So, all right. What else is going on, you guys? Great question. Great views. All right. Yeah, we're a family. We're never supposed to forsake the gathering together, right? And we do this online, right? I'd much rather gather here than in a church who's going to deceive me, who's going to tell me lies or not be honest with me about the state of the world, give us some Pollyanna view of what's happening, still entrenched in the satanic holidays and, inferring that we should vote for a certain person. Yeah, I'd rather be here with you guys. All right, you guys. Well, I guess I'm going to pop off here. I will see you guys all tomorrow. Much love. Take care.